This lesson covers the topic of a brand and its values and how they can be used to build story worlds in which situate stories embedded with the values of a brand itself. Words that audiences can access and interact with, taking advantage of the fact that they are articulated through media that provide such a possibility. This reasoning happens in a situation, the current one, that depicts a cultural model wherein people look for and use dramatic simulation of experiences, with memorable stories that tend to remain open, feeding a communication that extends through time. Such narratives require to be built on broader story worlds that are able to sustain the construction of multiple stories that are reciprocally consistent and connected. Dealing with branding and interactive narratives means allowing users to experience stories that convey the values of a brand, encouraging the interaction in the meanwhile. This process requires to consider as central the relationship between marketing and communication, which goes in the direction of a relational brand that is able to get deeply connected with its audience, building a solid trust and fictional pact. The building process starts from recalling the elements on the ground of a brand strategy as a deep knowledge of both the brand and the audiences to address. Both the story world and its stories must be built according to the brand's identity, creating valuable content that follows its features and nurtures its value. Building story worlds about brand, from which several sets of stories can be developed, means making an attempt to embed sets of values, ethical principles, and cultural attitudes that can be delivered through time across narratives. Story worlds have a significant potential in terms of richness and also audience engagement. They enable the audience to grasp a sense of a world as a complex system that supports all its narratives. Moreover, they are powerful design boosts, able to encourage a potential infinite amount of characters and storylines. To approach a story world building, a necessary premise is that the elements that allow authors and audiences to think about pieces of information as a whole world are several, and they make the world complete and consistent.
Over the years, several scholars analyzed the issue, producing different structures able to frame the word complexity. Although different authors conceived different frameworks in different times, their studies can be seen as overlapped, since each word tends to rely on certain recurrent identity-making dimensions which characterize and distinguish it. We refer to three particular systems: the ones proposed by the scholars of new media and transmedia Lisbeth Klastrup and Susanna Tosca, the one theorized by the scholars and authors Davide Pinardi and Pietro De Angelis as a reinterpretation of Altan's previous work, and then the one presented by Mark J.P. Wolf. As we can see, we are not talking about different structures. On the opposite, the second and the third can be seen as unpacked evolutions of the first. This keeping in mind that each narrative revolves around elements that cannot be omitted: space and time in which the story goes, characters, human or not, that are inhabiting the world, and conflicts that can be among characters or with the world. Aiming at building fresh, captivating and engaging interactive narratives for contemporary media, being them analog, digital or hybrid, we are in need of tools that support the design process. Starting from the above-mentioned framework of Pinardi and De Angelis, it has been obtained a design tool that works as a blueprint for world creation. The tool is meant to guide in training designers to draft a qualitative description of a narrative world as a meant-to-be story world, using the 7 items of Pinardi and De Angelis for the systematization: topos, environment; epos, background story; ethos, value system; telos, life goals and objectives; logos, language; genos, system of relations. The definition of such elements is a necessary condition for developing words that are consistent and complete in their different aspects. In detail, topos refers to the environment of the world, and it requires to describe both its territory as a natural or artificial habitat and the population that inhabits such a world. Epos identifies the historical memory, namely past events and cultural elements that characterize a world, or even something bigger, as a superworld or a universe. As such, it can include myth but cultural constructions. Taking a smaller size, epos also refers to the memories of smaller communities, the so-called subworlds, even getting to the dimension of the ones of a single character. The term ethos makes reference to the set of values, rules and norms that regulate the behaviors within the world. As in the previous case, it can have different size of application, from the entire story world as a universal ethos to the subworlds, communitarian ethos, to characters, individual ethos. Telos indicates the aims and objectives of the population of the world. They can be conscious or unconscious and are in a strict relation with the previous category. As such, if the telos evolves, it provokes changes in terms of ethos. Logos is the language, verbal or non-verbal, and it plays a key role in describing a population, providing relevant glimpses of its attitudes. Genos refers to the relationship that characterize the world. They span from micro to macro, regulate the overall relations within the narrative world. To conclude, Chronos is the time in which the story world is set, and hence the time in which the story will take place. The definition of these elements as a coherent and connected whole is preparatory to the construction of a world rich and solid enough to contain characters and values that nurture meaningful stories.